Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're venturing into the sonic landscapes of the Oberheim Xpander and Matrix12 synthesizers.
That's right.
You, our curious listener, have gifted us an incredible collection of community wisdom programming tips, hidden tricks, and sonic explorations unearthed by fellow synth enthusiasts from forums, newsletters, shared experiences, all sorts.
Yeah, a real treasure trove.
Our mission is to distill the most fascinating and, well, immediately useful insights from this goldmine, whether you're a seasoned synth programmer, an adventurous sound designer, or maybe just intrigued by these legendary instruments.
Indeed. And we have a unique set of sources here offering a real inside look. It's how these synths are actually used and pushed to their limits.
Going beyond the manual.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Think of it as going far beyond the factory presets and official documentation. We'll be uncovering practical programming advice, those ingenious undocumented features users stumbled upon, clever workarounds.
For limitations.
Yeah, and even some of the well-known quirks and bugs, all straight from the passionate community of Xpander and Matrix12 users.
Okay, let's dive right in then. Let's explore some of the truly fascinating programming discoveries and, well, let's be honest, some of the wonderfully strange things that happen when you really start experimenting.
Absolutely. Where should we start?
Well, one contributor, Jens Johansson, shared some pretty mind-bending methods for creating non-12-tone scales. It sounds like he was really going deep under the hood.
Oh yeah, Jen's stuff is fascinating. What's particularly insightful is how he exploits the Xpander and Matrix12's architecture to fundamentally alter how pitch is organized.
How's he do that?
He uses keyboard control of oscillator page 2 in conjunction with the lag processor. He details a method using the modulation matrix specifically, modulating oscillator page 2 with keyboard by plus 62 and again with keyboard by plus 49.
Okay.
And that gets you a 19-step per octave scale.
Wow, 19 steps.
Yeah, it really shows how the deep modulation matrix lets you redefine the very foundations of, Western music. Opens up a whole new world beyond the familiar 12 notes.
Absolutely. And he outlines another ingenious approach too, right? Routing the keyboard through a tracking generator.
That's right, and then through the lag processor to control oscillator page 2.
For those unfamiliar, the tracking generator lets you map an incoming control signal to specific output values. Yeah.
Exactly, and Jens provides precise values 0, 15, 31, 47, 63 for a 6-step or octave whole tone scale.
Okay.
And another set 47, 39, 31, 23, 15 for what he calls a reverse 12-step scale, which is interesting.
Connecting this to the bigger picture, it really underscores the incredible flexibility in these Oberheims, doesn't it?
Totally. The ability to not only access but also manipulate core aspects like tuning at such a fundamental level, it says a lot about their design.
And Jens mentioned the lag circuit on VCO page 2.
Right. He points out it's a powerful tool for exploration, allowing much more dramatic frequency sweeps when modulated directly there, compared to routing through the main mod matrix to VCO frequency. It's more immediate.
More direct, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of speed, here's an interesting observation, almost a question from Jens. He wonders if ramps might actually have faster attack times compared to standard ENVs. He presents it as maybe just an illusion, but it's that kind of subtle user experience that makes you think.
That's a fascinating observation. It makes you wonder, are there subtle differences in the analog circuitry or maybe the way the curves are generated?
Could just be perception.
Even if the parameters are similar, the specific shape of the ramp curve versus a traditional ADSR, it could definitely influence how we perceive that initial attack. Something to listen for on your own setup for sure.
Definitely. Now let's get into some in-phase LFO wizardry.
Yeah.
Jens describes doubling the frequency of a triangle wave LFO using a tracking generator set to specific values. 0, 31, 63, 31, 0.
Clever.
And for a crude quadrupling, he suggests 0, 60, 0, 63, 0, 0. It's a neat way to get faster modulation without pushing the LFO speed itself to the max.
What's insightful there is the creative repurposing of the tracking generators. They're meant for shaping control signals, but here they're manipulating the LFO waveform itself. Frequency multiplication, basically.
But not true FM, he notes.
Right. He touches on the limitations for true FM because of the software-based mod matrix, reminds us of the hybrid nature of these synths.
And the tracking generators aren't just for frequency tricks. We have ideas here for using them to sculpt all sorts of LFO behaviors,
Yeah.
shaping the waveform,
Yeah.
skewing random distributions.
From the SNH noise wave.
Yeah, and even generating unique envelope-like contours when you route a ramp into one. It's like having mini wave shapers hidden in there.
Exactly. It highlights the interconnectedness of the architecture. The components aren't isolated, they can be combined in surprising ways, going beyond their primary functions.
Okay, here's a neat trick for bipolar levers, the ones that send positive and negative voltage. Using two tracking generators with specific ranges like 0, 15, 31, 31, 31 for one, and 31, 31, 47, 63 for the other. You can split that single lever into two separate unipolar signals.
So one only goes negative, the other only positive.
Exactly, letting you control different things with distinct directional responses, all from one physical control.
That's a really elegant solution for expanding control without needing more hardware.
Right.
Smart mapping of a single input range.
Now, this sounds seriously lush. Jens describes a triple BBD ensemble effect, like those rich swirling sounds from, a CS80 or a Juno.
Right, that classic ensemble chorus.
He does it using a substantial 6 LFOs and 3 VCOs per voice.
Whoa, that's resource intensive.
It is. The key seems to be triggering the LFOs in groups of 3, same frequency but different phases, achieved by layering 2 different single patches.
Okay.
The result is described as a warm, very tweakable pad sound, and remarkably, no pulse width modulation needed.
That's impressive. Committing 6 LFOs and 3 VCOs per voice is a big investment in the architecture, but if it delivers that classic rich texture without PWM, that's pretty unique. Worth exploring.
Definitely. And the often underappreciated AG unit gets another creative use here as a sample and hold.
Oh, yeah.
Set it to XPO mode, rate at max 63, then modulate that rate with the gate signal. Gate 63 samples, gate holds.
Huh. Instant sample and hold.
Yeah. Handy if you're out of LFOs or just want a different SNH flavor.
It just shows how even straightforward modules like the lag processor have these hidden, unexpected uses. Creative routing unlocks them.
Here's a more abstract one. Crude signal derivation. Take a raw signal with positive modulation and a lag delayed version of the same signal as negative modulation to the same destination.
Okay, so the difference between the signal and its delayed self drives the modulation.
Exactly. Jens also mentions adding positive and negative quantized modulation from the same source might be interesting. Sounds like a recipe for unpredictable evolving textures.
Yeah, that delves into what you might call differential modulation. The dynamic relationship between a signal and its altered version lagged here creates movement. Quantization adds another layer, stepped changes.
And for a quirky multiply hack, Jen suggests using the LFO's sample wave at max frequency, 63.
Right.
Feed one factor into the sample input, the other modulates the LFO volume. The LFO output is a rough approximation of the product.
A rough approximation being the key phrase, I imagine.
He does point out it's inherently a bit slow, even at the fastest LFO rate.
It's certainly a clever workaround for a function that's not built in. Using the SNH capability that way, even with speed limits, shows real determination to find solutions within the instrument's framework.
Okay, now let's move to some more intricate sample and hold setups. We have a detailed patch using pedal 2 as the sample hold control.
Ah, more complex than the LAG method.
Definitely. It involves routing a ramp through LFO1, LFO1 output through a tracking generator to control LFO2. The signal you want to sample goes into LFO3's sample input.
Wow.
And then a specific set of matrix mods ties it all together. LFO1 output becomes the sampled signal.
So you're essentially building a dedicated sample and hold module using LFOs and a TRK.
Pretty much. More flexible if you need the Elgar for something else.
The complexity there really highlights the depth of the modulation matrix. It's a testament to the community experimenting and sharing these intricate designs. Breaking them down is instructive.
And if you thought that was complex, check out this weird flip-flop patch. Similar foundation ramp hiss, LFOs but different TRK values, and matrix routing.
A flip-flop, like logic.
Yeah, pedal 2 apparently acts as a toggle, flipping the state of the output from LFO1. The contributor even wondered about building a counter if more LFOs were available.
That's really pushing it into modular territory within a fixed architecture. Creating logic functions like that shows an advanced understanding and a playful approach.
Moving to more immediately practical tips. Keeping a silent patch in S00 for quick muting in multi-mode. Stroke of genius for workflow.
So simple, so useful.
And the shortcut of typing 99 to instantly enter the max value 63. Small things that speed things up.
Those are the kind of user tips you never find in the manual. They come from hours of hands-on use, knowing the interface inside out.
Finally, a rather Hands-on mod. One user physically opened their Matrix12 and turned the pitch and mod levers around.
Seriously, just flipped them.
Yep, to match other synths. Naturally, required resetting the polarity in software, but it shows the lengths users go to personalize things.
That's adapting the instrument to your workflow for sure. Reminds us the goal is making music intuitively, even if the tech is complex.
Okay, let's shift focus now. Let's explore how users employ multi-patch creation for special effects. Dan Barrett shares some great ideas here.
Yes, multi-mode, where you layer single patches. It's key for effects not possible in a single patch.
First up, dynamic stereo panning. Create 2 identical single patches.
Okay.
Then introduce opposite modulations, like volume increases with velocity in one, decreases in the other.
I see where this is going.
Layer them in multi-mode, same keyboard range, different zones, pan one hard left, one hard right.
So playing harder shifts the sound across the stereo field. Clever. Leverages the multi-architecture for spatial effects using opposing mods.
He gives an LFO-based example, too. LFO modulating VCA amplitude in 2 patches, panned left-right. The key is setting different LFO retrig values.
Right, so the LFOs restart at different points, different phases, creating constant stereo movement. Another great illustration.
Dan even suggests experimenting with non-identical patches for more complex spatial textures.
Makes sense.
And he throws out a psychedelic panning idea. Multiple patches, varying velocity sensitivities layered and panned differently. Sounds immersive.
It really highlights the potential for crafting intricate, responsive soundscapes by combining single-patch capabilities within the multi-environment.
Next, Dan covers emulating steel guitar pitch bends. He compares it to the Rhodes Chroma Polaris, which could do something similar.
Okay, how does that work on the Xpander?
It's a complex multi-setup. 2 nearly identical single patches, specific envelope settings, specific lever assignments. The core idea is only notes held down when the sustain pedal is pressed get affected by subsequent pitch bends.
Wow, that's an ingenious workaround for a specific performance technique not built in. Meticulously tailoring envelopes and levers, using the sustain pedal as a gate for the bend, mimicking a function that isn't there. The detailed settings show the level of control available.
And finally, for multi-patches, a trick for an inverted keyboard using the multi-transpose.
How's that done?
First, in the single patch, turn off keyboard tracking on VCO page 2, so pitch doesn't follow the keys anymore.
Yeah.
Then, negatively modulate VCO1 frequency with the keyboard. Higher keys, lower pitch.
Okay, keyboard inversion at the VCO level.
If the resulting range is too low, create a multi-patch with a single patch and just transpose the whole multi-oak 2 octaves.
That's a multi-layered approach. Invert the fundamental response in the single patch, then use the global multi-transpose to shift the whole thing. Alters pitch relationships across the keyboard.
Dan also gave insights on envelope manipulation, specifically creating exponential or logarithmic shapes.
Beyond linear.
Self-modulation. Use an envelope's output to modulate one of its own segments, like attack time.
Okay.
Positive modulation gives more exponential curves, negative gives logarithmic. But the modulation amount is critical.
Right, too little does nothing, too much gets extreme and maybe unusable.
He also points out you can apply this self-modulation to other things, like LFO speed or amplitude, for some wild dynamic results.
Good point. Not just limited to the envelope segments themselves.
Moving on to timbral panning and triggering. One idea uses an envelope, or LFO, to modulate several timbral parameters simultaneously, not just stereo pan.
Like what?
VCO amplitudes, VCF resonance, FM amplitude maybe, creating a dynamic shift in the sound's character over time.
That's great. Using modulation for dynamic changes in the timbre itself, not just volume or pan. Targeting multiple parameters gives more complex, evolving textures.
Another neat performance trick. 2 single patches with identical envelopes, one single triggered, one multi-triggered.
Okay, so one plays once per key press, the other repeats while held.
Right. Then set them to opposite amplitude levels.
Well,
One silent, 0, 1, full 63.
no.
Use a foot pedal to crossfade between them. Dynamically switch between single and multi-triggering in the same sound.
That's fantastic. So expressive. Adds rhythmic complexity on the fly. Highlights the performance capabilities, altering envelope triggering with a pedal, opens up possibilities.
Dan also compiled some helpful technical notes, including errors in the official Matrix12 manual.
Oh, always good to know about those. Like what?
Like the diagram omitting the NOIC waveform for VCO2, or inaccurate service manual info.
Yeah, that community knowledge is invaluable. Saves time and frustration when the official docs are wrong.
He also points out an undocumented feature on the tune page.
Yeah.
Pressing all again aborts a tune all process.
Handy.
Though he notes the side effect where it can affect the MIDI mute and tune page buttons sometimes. Good to be aware of.
Definitely.
And of course, bugs. We have a list of quirks in the Matrix12 and Xpander, quantized modulation issues, initialization behavior on the mod page.
Vintage synth realities.
It's interesting to see which ones Oberheim knew about and planned to fix.
Acknowledging those limitations is crucial, sometimes frustrating, but occasionally those quirks lead to unexpected sonic discoveries too.
Now, Mike Metley wrote a piece, Going Nuts with MIDI and CVs, really emphasizing the Xpander's flexibility with external control.
Absolutely. The Xpander shines there. It was designed with incredible capacity for external control signals.
What exactly does it offer?
6 sets of CV and gate inputs, a trigger input, 2 assignable pedal inputs, comprehensive MIDI, all usable as modulation sources for tons of internal parameters. It was meant as a central hub.
Mike delves into assigning MIDI CCs, pedals, levers to control pretty much anything. He even mentions MIDI controller boxes, like the Yamaha NCS2, to expand options, even for the Matrix12, which lacks CV inputs.
Right, it unlocks incredibly expressive performances. Mapping external controllers allows nuanced, real-time manipulation. His example of using a DX7 volume pedal to invert Xpander VCA modulation.
Creating a crossfade between the two synths.
Exactly. Perfect illustration of that power.
And it's not just direct mapping. Mike talks about using tracking generators for nonlinear control curves.
Shaping the response.
And the lag processor to smooth abrupt transitions, like automatic faders or a smooth, slow mod button.
Yeah, shaping the behavior of external controls in musically useful ways. Highlights the depth beyond simple mapping. Inserting TRKs and lag into the control path allows much more sophisticated interactions.
Lionel Cass explored flexible delay with multiple envelopes, using the 5 envelopes per voice.
5 is generous.
He repurposed their delay segments as discrete delay taps, creating a multi-tap delay effect internally.
That's ingenious. Repurposing a standard feature the envelope delay stage for a totally different function. Adjusting delay times on several envelopes creates controllable echoes.
And it gets more flexible. Assign a continuous MIDI controller pedal, fader to modulate those envelope delay times, real-time delay time control.
Wow.
He even describes swing delays by modulating decay times and using VCA2 as an overall effect level control.
That's testament to the creative problem solving in the community. Finding unexpected uses for existing features shows deep understanding and pushing boundaries. The stereo delay idea, layering 2 versions with taps alternating channels, is also super clever.
David Ziegold contributed some valuable tech tips for patch programming. One uses a ramp through a tracking generator to create custom, nonlinear modulation curves.
Going beyond standard linear ramps or ADSR shapes.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah, allows much more complex, nonlinear modulation shapes. Opens up possibilities for unique, evolving timbres. He compares it to Casio CZ envelope shapes.
That's a helpful reference for the kind of percussive, dynamic sounds possible.
He also tackled creating that LFO growl for brass sounds.
A common request?
Fast triangle LFO, amplitude modulated by a fast ramp or velocity. For extra realism, add a fast envelope to VCO frequency for the initial spit.
Nice. Those detailed techniques bring synthesized sounds to life. Careful combination of LFO for growl and ENV for the attack transient makes a much more convincing brass sound.
And for adding subtle randomness, David suggests a slow, random waveform LFO, gently modulating VCO frequencies.
Random detuning.
Creates a natural sounding effect. Could also be used for a random chorus. He cautions against using it heavily with FM patches, though.
Right, FM is very sensitive to pitch variations, but it's a subtle, effective way to add organic movement, makes sounds less static. The random chorus idea is particularly interesting.
Mike Metley then took a deep dive into microtonality, building on Dan Barrett's inverted keyboard trick.
Okay, more non-12 tone stuff.
The principle is positively modulating VCO frequencies with keyboard pitch info to get more than 12 notes per octave.
Exploring non-standard tunings. Fascinating.
Mike gives specific modulation settings for various scales, 31, 19, 24, even 48 notes per octave.
Wow.
And a crucial tip, often need to use modulation slightly less than Max 63, maybe 62, due to nonlinear keyboard scaling.
That's a critical detail for anyone seriously experimenting there.
Ted Greenwald then bravely ventured into FM synthesis on the single oscillator per voice expander.
Challenging territory with analog oscillators. Tuning stability.
He acknowledged that, yes,
Yeah.
potential for drift. But he found interesting timbres through careful FM ratio modulation manipulation.
His emphasis on frequent, careful tuning for Xpander FM is spot on. Critical.
He also points out practical limits keeping VCO frequencies from getting too high for pitch consistency, and a subtle portamento effect between very low-high notes.
Ah, yeah. His suggestion of using multi-patches and keyboard splits as a workaround for that portamento on big jumps is insightful.
Ted even adapted programming rules from Steve DeFuria's DX7 book for the Xpander.
Translating concepts, valuable.
VCO1 VCF is the carrier, fundamental tone. VCO2 is the modulator, alters timbre.
Bridging digital FM like the DX7 and analog FM on the Xpander. Great way to expand possibilities. Understanding carrier modulator frequencies and relationships is key for successful FM programming.
Vladimir Vus noted potential tuning discrepancies between the Xpander and Yamaha FM synths like the TX802.
Oh, how so?
Both deviate slightly from perfect stretch tuning,
Yeah.
but differently, sometimes causing a sour sound when played together.
Good reminder about precise tuning and temperament, even digitally when integrating hardware. Complex stuff.
He also briefly mentioned the U-Tune function in the service menu,
Ah, yes.
calling its chaotic effect appealing to industrial noise fanatics. Add some playful mayhem back in.
Yeah, right.
Glenn Workman contributed practical pedal tips and other tricks. First, loading multiple single patches via cassette or MIDI using the multi-patch buffer saves time managing external libraries.
Great workflow enhancement for cassette or SysX users. Temporarily loading singles into the multi-buffer without overwriting internal memory. Practical and risk-free for auditioning sounds.
Glenn also described coaxing extra effects by assigning a bipolar lever, or on-off pedal, to modulate LFO amplitude or speed, with the base LFO setting near 0.
So the controller acts like a switch or crossfader for the LFO effect.
Exactly. His example was using one lever for 2 distinct vibrato speeds.
Demonstrates how thoughtful assignment expands expression without more controls. Smart mapping using the full controller range.
And Glenn provided an improved easy method for that inverted keyboard effect within a single patch using lag and a tracking generator.
Ah, refining the earlier tricks.
He even included specific TR key values for different microtonal tunings, whole tone, quarter tone.
Streamlined, self-contained approach. The included values for microtonal tunings make it immediately versatile for exploring beyond 12-note scales.
Alan Tam had advice for Yamaha WX7 wind controller users. Assign breath pressure to MIDI aftertouch for better compatibility with keyboard design patches.
Practical tip for alternative controllers.
And for MIDI guitarists experiencing tracking issues, George Tucker recommended setting the main output envelope to reset mode.
These specific tips show the importance of understanding how different controllers interact with the Xpander Matrix12 architecture and how to optimize them for smoother playing.
Doug Shaw offered practical studio tips. 1. Quickly brighten a patch by scrolling through the VCF pull filter options.
Simple, quick fix in a session. Time saver.
He also stressed having basic, reliable sounds ready, like a good DX7 Rhodes or warm Oberheim pad, essential building blocks.
Absolutely. Need efficiency and a solid foundation in the studio. Doug's anecdote about the overly processed brass.
Right, the one that was unusable.
Yeah, a humorous reminder that sometimes simpler is better, musically.
David Gilden shared more tech tips. Creating MIDI delay using an external processor, or, cleverly, the Matrix12's MIDI outlooped back to its input.
Ah, the MIDI loopback trick.
He also described unexpected nonlinear behavior when VCOs are synced and FM to VCO1 is maxed out.
Interesting quirk.
And creating chords from a single note using multi-patches in unison with transposed voices, useful for monophonic sequencers.
Those tips show creative MIDI use and maximizing internal voice allocation. The chord trick is especially handy for mono sequencers.
And David's final workflow tip, auditioning single patches safely by loading them into a multi-patch temporarily. Avoids accidental overwrites.
Smart. Using the multi-environment as a safe audition space is very practical. Recommended.
Dan Barrett then gave a detailed tutorial on keyboard modes, clearly explaining the differences between poly modes, rotate, reassign, reset, and mono modes, uni-low, uni-high, uni-last.
Invaluable for unlocking the full potential, especially with multi-patches. Understanding how modes govern voice assignment in zones is crucial for sophisticated keyboard interactions and complex textures.
His examples help, like rotate being musicians rotating instruments, reassign being them sticking to one until needed elsewhere.
Good analogy.
Or uni-low for hammer-on guitar effects, lowest new note takes priority.
Right. And his suggestions for layering modes, rotate for chords, plus uni-high H for a lead melody on the highest note, illustrate the power and versatility when combined creatively.
Mike Metley then contributed an incredibly thorough guide, How to Test an Xpander, aimed at potential used buyers.
Oh, that's essential.
2 parts, store testing and home testing. Covers everything. Voice checking, service page diagnostics, MIDI, audio. Exceptionally detailed.
Absolutely essential guide for the used market. Mike's systematic checks for voices, service utilities, software versions, MIDI, audio, helps buyers avoid costly surprises, ensure they get a functional instrument.
Glenn Workman returned with another tip. MIDI delay within a single multi-patch.
Internal delay? How?
Layering an original sound with an echo. Set identical envelope delay values for both. Set key mode to free run, so voices cycle freely.
Ingenious way to create built-in delay using internal resources, a unique alternative to external processors.
He outlines creative variations too. Different timbres for original echo, MIDIing the echo to another synth, building the echo into a single patch, layering multiple echoes with increasing delays.
Really highlights the versatility of that internal delay approach.
And finally, a mind-blowing discovery from Dan Barrett. Achieving an inverted keyboard without using any of the 20 modulation slots per patch.
No mod slots used. How is that possible?
Very specific settings on FMLAG, Tranca K1, and VCO pages. Crucially relies on the hardwired page 2 LGAD modulation.
Remarkable demonstration of the fixed architecture's power highlights the underappreciated potential of those hardwired page 2 routings. Achieving that transformation without using the main mod matrix, truly impressive. Testament to the design's depth.
Lastly, a forum user discussed less conventional portamento uses. Not just pitch slides, but filter frequency glides.
Interesting.
And even more unusually, using portamento to fade in VCA amplitude, controlled by a pedal, like a sustain pedal acting as a bass drum trigger.
Okay.
He also noted portamento behavior can vary significantly depending on the selected key assignment mode.
Good point. Final reminder that even basic functions like portamento can be manipulated creatively for unique effects. And the key assign mode influence is a crucial detail for glide experiments.
Well, you, our incredibly dedicated listener, as you can hear, we've really only scratched the surface of this incredibly deep pool of collective knowledge surrounding these remarkable synthesizers.
Definitely just scratch the surface.
From intricate programming hacks to understanding their unique architecture, even exploiting quirks, the Xpander and Matrix12 offer a vast universe of sonic possibilities.
Whether you're seeking new sonic textures, deepening your understanding of synthesis, or even thinking of buying one, the insights from this passionate user community are invaluable. The adaptability and depth are genuinely remarkable decades later.
We wholeheartedly encourage you to delve even deeper, experiment with these techniques on your own synths, and maybe connect with other enthusiasts to share your findings. The journey of sonic exploration is clearly ongoing.
Which leads us to a really thought-provoking final question. Considering the sheer ingenuity, the dedication, the resourcefulness shown by these users decades after the instruments were made, what modern instruments today will inspire such a similarly passionate and creatively driven community in the years to come?